Hey, good morning. This is Pete from FigLife.com, and I'm wrapping up the growing season for this past winter spring period. I do a lot of growing over the winter using grow lights. I think I grew, I don't know, maybe it was like 25 or not 25, but 250 plants this last winter. Maybe closer to 300. I'm not really sure. But there's probably 50 to 100 that I grew for myself, and then I shipped out probably about 200. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to document kind of the way I do the shipping, because I have gotten a lot of feedback that people like the way that I pack up the plants, which is good to hear, I guess. But also at first I had some feedback from people talking about how their plants were damaged, or the boxes were damaged but the plants were okay, something along those lines. So I have adjusted my shipping methods a little bit in order to fix some of the problems that I had initially. And when you're doing like 200 plants or something, shipping that many, it's a pretty good sample size. So you can develop some good practices, some good lessons learned. So I'm just gonna go ahead and document those, partially because people have expressed interest in understanding how I do it, and then also because I'm wrapping up the season right now. I've only got, I don't have a lot of plants left, and I'm not going to sell very many until next, maybe I'll sell a few in the fall, but next spring probably is when I'll sell a bunch again. And so I will probably forget everything that I've learned between now and then. So if I can document it, then it'll just be that much easier. I won't have to repeat the lessons that I've already learned. So I will just go ahead and do that. All right, so I've got a plant here. This is actually St. Martin, and first thing I do is just make sure that it's filled up near the top, because sometimes after you grow these for many months, the soil that was in here that was initially full, it settles down quite a bit and it sits pretty low in the pot. So unless there's a graft here that I want to keep exposed, I'm just going to go ahead and fill this up, because if I don't fill this up with dirt, then what I'm going to have to do is fill it up with something else, like paper towels. And honestly, I could go through like half a roll of paper towels with this much space that I have in the pot. So I'm just going to fill this up with some soil. It's not actually soil, it's potting soil. I've been using Promix BX for my initial rooting, and that has worked well. A lot of people use Promix HP, and I'm sure that would work equally well, maybe even better, who knows. I ended up going with Promix BX for my rooting because Threefold Farm had a great, they did, over the course of several years, they documented the different soil mediums that they used, and they got slightly better performance out of Promix BX than they did Promix HP. And I was using a similar rooting process to Threefold Farm. I basically kind of copied their stuff, and so I figured, hey, they've already done a lot of work on this, let me just learn from them. I'll just use the Promix BX. So this is Promix BX. So I just fill it up pretty much to the top, not all the way to the top, and then what I do is I weigh it, and I use a scale. I use weight extensively when I'm growing in these 4x4x9 tree pots. I use it when I'm first growing them. So just a stick in a pot of soil. I use the scale because I want to provide enough water, but it's really critical not to provide too much water. And so I use the scale to just make sure I have the exact right amount of water. I can determine the amount of water by just weighing it. A lot of people use the feel method. Hey, does this feel right? Well, scale's it's just the feel method, except it's scientific. It's an exact number. It's not based on, if I worked out earlier that morning or whatever, right? So I just use the scale quite a bit. And then later in the season, when I'm trying to make sure they have enough water, because under the grow lights, they can go through a lot of water, especially in these small pots. And so at that point, I'll be putting more water in. When I'm first, well, let me go back. So when I'm first watering them, I'll water to about, I use about 550 grams total weight in the pot. I've heard some other well-respected growers use a weight that's slightly less than that, maybe more like 480 grams. I prefer a little more water, just because at 480 you really got to pay attention to them. Well, maybe that's not true, I don't know. But in any case, I use about 550. But then later in the season when they're going through a lot of water, I put more water in because I want to make sure they don't dry out, and that's the problem that I have when they're more fully grown. And so I'll weigh them to about 650 grams. And when I first started shipping these things, earlier in the season, I was putting enough water in them to get, I don't know, it's maybe like 700 grams of weight, which is a little more than I normally put in there. Normally I'll do about 650 grams. I think I mentioned that, but when I was shipping them, I would put a little more in, about 700 grams. But then I was getting feedback from people that they would arrive and the plant was dry and it was shriveled up or whatever, right? The leaves were damaged because it lost too much water in transit. And so I started putting extra water in there, and I've gone with what I've ended up going with is a weight of 900 grams, which is quite a bit of water. You put 900 grams in here, it probably will not flow out the bottom, but it's going to be pretty close. Like if I went to 1,000, I'd probably get water coming out the bottom here, and I don't want that because it just makes a mess. So I just fill them up to about 900 grams, and actually this one already is at that weight, so I don't need to add any water to this. But if it was less than 900 grams, I would go ahead and I would add some water to this to get it to 900 grams. But this one's good. So then what I do, so now the weight is good, the water's good, I don't need to worry about weight or water anymore. It's got the right amount. So I'll just put the scale to the side. And now I put paper towels in the rest because you don't want this soil to shift around. These pots could be shipped upside down, they could be shipped on their side, you know, there's no right side up when you're shipping. Like they're not gonna adhere to that. So you just gotta make sure that when it is flipped upside down, it's not gonna, the soil's not gonna move around, because you don't want the soil to move around. Honestly, it really doesn't matter if the thing is upside down. If everything's secured in place, it should be fine. So we gotta secure everything in place. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking some paper towel, I'm just dipping it in some water that I have here off to my side, just to get it damp, because I don't need the paper towel to be sucking up the water that's supposed to be in the soil. So I just make those a little bit damp, and then I just stuff it in there so that it's tight. So if this thing shifts around, if it gets flipped upside down, the soil's not gonna come out and hopefully not even really move around at all. So I just get that kind of flat with the top, and then what I need to do is I'm gonna need to put some tape on the top of this to keep it all fixed in there. But before I put the tape in there, I want to put the bamboo sticks in there, because otherwise I have to, well, if I do the bamboo sticks first, I can put the tape on such that it keeps everything tight in place, including the bamboo sticks. So that's what I prefer to do. So, okay, so this is the stick I use because it's the exact right height, for the box size that I have. And I'll get to the boxes here in a second. But I just use this so that I don't have to measure the stick against the box every time I'm trying to cut these. And when you're doing like 200 of these things, you know that any time savings you can achieve is very helpful. And so these, I'm not sure, you know what, I ought to measure these. I think these are 3/8 inch thick sticks. These are bamboo sticks. I just bought a bunch of them before the season started because I knew I was going to need a lot of them. And I want them to be kind of thick enough that they're going to really hold up. So I think these are 3/8 inch. I just bought a bunch of them. I think it was like, I don't know, Greenhouse Megastore, or it's one of those stores that I bought them from. All right, so now I got 3 of these bamboo sticks. I'm just gonna stick them in here. I just stick them in the corners. 1, 2, and 3. And you think, well, there's 4 sides, why not put 4 of them in there? I could put 4 of them in there, but do I need to put 4 of them in there? I don't think I do. And in fact, I used to just put 2 in there, but what was happening was sometimes the boxes would not be handled very well, and this bottom part here would stay in. It would obviously stay in the normal shape because it's filled with the soil and stuff. But as it reached up here, this part would get flattened, like almost completely flattened, all the way up to the top. but this part wouldn't get smashed. The part where the bamboo was, and my plants were actually arriving in okay condition. It looked bad on the outside, but when you open it up, because of these bamboo sticks in here, the plants arrived in decent condition. But so I've decided, just because I was getting several of those instances where the box was getting flattened, just stick another thing in here, another bamboo stick, and that creates like a triangle where the plant can be inside of this and it's not going to get smashed. You know, the box can get roughed up, but the plant's going to be fine. And I think this kind of fixes the problem. So sometimes still have rough handling from the shippers, but that is what it is. The plants seem to be arriving okay. And so now I've got my bamboo in here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put tape on the top here. And I usually just put like 3 pieces on here. I kind of put it snug up against the bamboo so that it keeps the bamboo in place also. Although the bamboo is exactly fit to cut the pot, or to fit the pot, so it shouldn't be moving around anyway. But you can have a problem where the bamboo will actually poke through the pot, and I want to try to avoid that. So the ways that I avoid that is, number one, I put the stick inside of the pot instead of outside of the pot, because if it's outside of the pot, now you can have you could have a problem where the stick becomes disconnected from the pot, and then the pot moves around, and you can smash your plant up. And then I put tape on the bottom as well, and this just keeps the moisture inside. It keeps it from leaking out to an extent. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's good enough, really. And I do use a lot of tape, but honestly the cost of the tape is cheap compared to the cost of the plant, so I'm okay using tape. I think it's worth the cost. And then how I prevent how I hope to prevent the sticks from busting through the top the top of the box on the top side is, well, first of all, I have 3 of these. So it's not super likely that 3 of these are going to bust through like the top of a box. But if you had 1, it might. And then I had, earlier in the season, I was using 2. And so just to keep these sticks from busting through the top, I just put a piece of tape on top. And it might not be necessary, but I just put a piece of tape on top. And what that does, at least the idea, is that it creates a larger surface area that's flush against the top of the pot, and so you've basically eliminated any possibility that this pot is going to bust through the top of the box at that point, because there's no way that all this tape and everything is going to bust through the top of the box. That's just not going to happen. So this is what I end up with. It sort of creates like a triangle in here that protects the plant. And then I just grab my box. And I just tape this thing up. So I use 4x4x24 boxes. And, honestly, that usually works. That'll work for this plant. But in some cases, I've had to use bigger boxes because the plant has gotten too large before I could get it shipped out. I don't want to cut the plants back because, you know, people are paying good money for these things. So what I've done is I've just kind of constructed larger boxes out of pieces of these size boxes. But next year, what I'll probably do is actually just purchase some larger boxes so that I don't have to cut these up. Okay, so I've gone ahead and taped this side. Now what I'll do is I'll just put the plant in there. Although let me just stick a shipping certificate on these things. I think people appreciate having the shipping certificates included. Technically, you're supposed to put these on there for most states, but realistically, no one cares. But I go ahead and put them on here just because I got them one out. Okay. So then I just slide the pot in, or slide the plant in. There you go. So it's a perfect fit by design. And then I just tape up the top. So I use these 4x4 by 24 boxes. I get these from, these are Supply Hut boxes, and they're okay. I got them, I think, via Walmart.com. They have must have a contract with Supply Hut, and so you can buy, you know, bundles of 25 or 50 or 100 or whatever via Walmart, and they're not super expensive. Christian Run from Tinkerbug Figs, he put together a little blog post the other day talking about how he does packing, and he does a great job of packing. Honestly, probably puts a little more effort into it than I do, but he does a great job. And he talked about some boxes from Uline, which is another supplier that I definitely considered before I went with Supply Hut this year. And he talked about a specific type of box. I think it was called Indestructo box or something. It was something close to that. And I might take a look at that next season, just because I have had damage to these boxes in shipping. You know, they get smashed up. I haven't really had much damage to the plants themselves, but I would like to improve the quality of the box. So I'm going to consider that for next season. And then I just put a strip of tape around, just to kind of keep everything together. So I've got tape all over this side, I've got tape all over this side, and then I've got a piece of tape going all the way around. And then when I put the label on, it's gonna get taped around again. And so, although these aren't the best boxes, with all the tape that's on this, these can survive quite a bit. And then with the bamboo inside, if this thing gets all smashed up in shipping, there's still a really good chance that the plant is actually going to arrive in good condition. So, so from here, I just print off my shipping labels. I use UPS, and I can print those off from home, and then they actually come to my house and pick up the plant. So I don't have to go to anywhere to ship them. It's actually pretty convenient. And then the only other thing is, let's say I had multiple boxes. Let's say I was shipping several figs out. What I'll do in that case is I'll just pack them up exactly like this, and I'll just tape them together. So I could have two taped together, and that would be 4x8 by 24, or I could have 4 of them taped together, and that would be 8x8 by 24. And then I just ship them that way as a single package like that, and that significantly reduces the shipping costs. That's how I'm able to provide the combined shipping. 3 doesn't really work out. I end up just shipping it with a 4th empty box in that case. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I can't think of anything else. So I will probably watch my own video here next fall to figure out how I did all this. And hopefully maybe there's somebody out there that has learned something useful from this as well. Thanks.